This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 18 for August 14th, 2005. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for This Week in Tech, the number one podcast. No, I'm sorry, the number two. No, we're not number. No, we're number two, number four, podcast in the nation, according to iTunes. I'm Leo Laporte. Joining me in the studio, Mr. Patrick Norton on Skype today. David Prager, Steve Gibson, Robert Heron, and Roger Chang, and via phone from the engine room of the good ship Dvorak. It's John C. Dvorak. We had to put him on the phone because those diesel engines can really kick up quite a lot of noise, John.
Yeah, well, that's the way they are.
The pocket of machines.
So you're running biodiesel down there, John?
Absolutely.
French fries. Everything smells like French fries.
Those are from chicken fat.
Everything smells like chicken.
Hey, you know what? Normally we'd start the show with what we thought was the top story of the week, but I think we're gonna toss it to John because John's a little upset about Steve Gibson's spam filtering solution. I hate to use the word solution because it's like the total evil marketing phrase.
I think it works.
I like saying solution once in a while just because it feels so naughty. But John, you're a little upset about Steve's email management system. Steve, what would you call it? Your filtering tool?
I'm not sure what we're talking about.
He wouldn't know because he doesn't get this mail. So let me explain what he's got here. Steve is. Let me get the message up here.
Oh, wait a minute! You're talking about the fact that we don't allow HTML in.
Yeah, listen to this. So there's a message going around. Everyone out there should know that kind of the inside baseball here when it comes to this show. Everybody sends a memo out on Saturday and Sunday, goes all over the place. And check this link out. We're going to talk about this, that, and the other thing.
As if we planned this show.
Well, there's actually better plan than what Leo used to do. Anyway, so you send a thing out, reply to all, and then you get this message back because Gibson's email, being the Mickey Mouse system that it is, instead of actually doing some real work or getting a spam filter, you get this message back that says, your HTML email was refused by our server. Hello, your email to grc.com was not delivered because it contains, quote, HTML formatting. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is the language used by the web pages on the World Wide Web. Then listen to this one. Since nearly all unsolicited commercial email spam uses HTML. This is bull, by the way, to create the. What about those Nigerian letters? I've never seen one of those in HTML.
Okay, so
it goes on and on and on. So I sent it back to him, saying, "What is this BS?" And I get it back again because apparently there was a link in there. So this is to me is just basically an insult to anyone trying to send Steve emails.
I don't know. My email goes through fine.
That's because, but once Steve approves you, because
I don't send HTML mail. I agree with him.
Well, I know, but you can send Steve HTML if he approves you.
Hey, HTML mail is not going away.
I'd be happy to whitelist you, John.
There is no way that HTML mail is disappearing.
We'll just put some grease on your email and it slides right in.
What's wrong with Steve? What's wrong with HTML email?
Oh, they hide tons of garbage inside of it.
Well, I mean, it really is the case that we're phenomenally buried by email unless we do that. And we've tried it as an experiment to remove the HTML filter, and it's a phenomenal difference.
I think it's a correct way.
Raquel over at Computer Time over here in the Peninsula has a bunch of highly elaborate email filters.
I mean, I would think
I get no spam at all.
Who would say, email should just be text.
Now, wait a minute. John, do you get no spam because you have a minion of evil helpers that sort through your mail for you so it all shows up without the spam? Or do you actually not get any spam?
Automated security.
I do not get any spam.
How do you do that?
Yeah, John, tell us.
Possible.
How do you do that, John?
I don't do it.
Who does it?
Mark Purcell. He's like a genius. He runs this little service called Computer Time, which is he's the guy. I've known this guy for 25 years. He started off being like a netware guy and had a thing called Mark's Menu back in the 80s.
Is this something we can use?
Yeah, we could.
How could we use
You just have to go through his system with your mail, and it'll just get cleared right out.
Does he offer this as a commercial service, or do you have to be a friend of his?
Is it softwaretime.com? Is that his website?
It's www.ctyme.com.
All right. I use something similar. I use server-side email spam protection for MailRoute, which does work very well. CloudMark, same thing, works very well. Brightmail.
Right. This actually works better than Brightmail. But I mean, he actually has my server. I mean, he does the whole thing for me. But he can do just the email part of it, and I get no spam.
None?
None.
I still get 10 or 15
I'll get one thing will sneak in a week.
Well,
and then you send it back to Mark and you'll never see it again. It's unbelievable.
So what's the URL?
CTYME.com.
Right.
We can't get there, but because it's blocking you, Patrick. You're using HTML.
Well, it's computer type. Okay, so
why do you say HTML mail is not going away? I mean, it is a blight. The mail is bloated. It hides stuff. It's ugly. You don't think Incredimail is a good thing, surely?
Actually, you know what? So this guy's
HTML based.
Huh?
Google's email service is HTML based.
Yeah, but you can turn it off.
That's true. But I mean, by default,
all webmail is going to.
It's not going away because the general public doesn't know what the hell what Steve Gibson's talking about when it comes to this, like refusal to. In fact, I think most people, if they were writing to Steve when they got that memo, they'd go, "I don't know what he's talking about."
Well, and that's why he explains it so clearly.
He explains it, and it doesn't help.
I talk about it all the time. I've been saying on the radio show for 2 years, don't use HTML mail.
Well,
I don't know if it's sinking
not going away.
John, you're now whitelisted, so you can send me any crap that you want to, and it'll come right in.
From now on, you're getting spam.
By the way,
all from Dvorak.org.
So Computer Time is your web host, John, and they're using Spam Assassin to filter your
he's
email.
a Spam Assassin.
No, Spam Assassin is only one of the many mechanisms he uses.
Okay, well, according to his website, he's using Spam Assassin and XMRoll.
Spam Assassin is very good. I think Spam Assassin is
amazing.
And many people have it. They don't know it. Their internet service provider would turn it on if they asked.
So in your case, John,
we also know many instances where Spam Assassin false positives and blocks people who have.
Well, here's what I do with Spam Assassin. First of all, turn off all real-time black holes.
And we should point out that Spam Assassin runs on your email server.
Yeah.
These are all server-side.
So turn off the black hole stuff because you're right. Maps and orbs will have lots of false positives. So I turn that off. The second thing you do is you set the setting fairly high. You set it to 8, or the default is 6.5, I think, or 6. You set it to 8, and that way only the really most egregious stuff gets stopped. But that's 80% of all
Okay, well,
stuff.
let me tell you what another thing that he does, which is not mentioned there. He uses a 3-stage filtering system, and maybe spam it. Seriously.
You sound like you're advertising vodka,
Does it have the micronite filter? Because I thought that was really good. That's what made Kent so smooth.
You know what? If you guys don't want to hear about it, it's fine with me. I get no spam.
3-stage filter, John.
3-stage filter.
My web-based email does me just fine.
Okay, tell us about the 3-stage filter.
You know what? I'm not talking about it anymore. I've already given enough publicity to this. People out there, just go check it out. CTime.com. Good man.
John's quoted on CTime.com on the main page.
Well, of course, it says, good man. John C. Dvorak.
Yeah, I plug this people. I don't plug
This guy
junk.
will be so busy after this podcast goes public that no one's going to be able to get an account.
Yeah, well, yeah.
See, that's when it's time for him to franchise.
Yeah, can we talk a little, as long as I said the word podcast, can we do a little inside baseball podcast issue? Because iTunes really screwed the pooch this week.
Yeah.
Did you guys see what happened?
No.
We're going to get Mikey on the show a little later on. I'll get a little interview with Mike Lazazara, who works on Call for Help with me. Mike and Amber were preparing a segment on how to subscribe to a podcast on iTunes. In order to do that, as you know, in TV, he had to do it a few times to tape it and so forth. He noticed, he clicked maybe 10, 15 times on the subscribe button. His podcast was rising up through the iTunes ranks. So he tried it again. We got some third-party people to verify it. And he published it on his blog. By the next day, the weirdest podcasts were number 1, 2, 3, 4 on the iTunes podcast.
Wait, so our number 1 listing is faux?
I wouldn't get all excited about it.
I got something to throw in on this.
What's that?
I didn't want to mention it, but I might as well. But there's some mechanism out there that somebody buys. It's one of these rating mechanisms. And it seems to stem from Amazon. When we first came out with the Dvorak Online, the book, we started noticing the same phenomenon. If you start pounding the site with within a short duration, it jerks the numbers up. In other words, those values are all bogus.
Well, apparently what's happening is that iTunes is counting clicks on the subscribe button, not actual subscriptions, not downloads, which is stupid, but merely clicks. There was a Spanish language newscast that's only had podcast only has one edition, released 8/6, that was number 2 on the iTunes top list for most of Tuesday. It's just nutty. A Spanish language. It's just nutty. So
there are a lot of Spanish language speakers.
Dave's iPack podcast, which by the way is a fascinating podcast all about iPacks. I should play you a little bit.
Let's not get snarky.
I know Dave. He's fine. Nice guy.
People love the iPack.
But come on, the number one podcast, and it's not sour grapes. We've been in the top 5 for weeks.
Well, can't we just create a bot and bang this thing and drop ourselves way up there?
We don't have to. We were number 1.
Actually, we're back to number 2.
Oh, the Mugglecast is now number 1.
Okay, see what I mean?
See what I mean?
We should have a bot. Somebody write a bot.
Okay, everybody, while you're there's my phone. While you're talking on the show right now, just click the subscribe button a few times.
Exactly.
You just subscribe, you backspace, you subscribe, you backspace. That's all you have to do. And I bet we can be number 1 before the show's over. Anyway, Apple, you would think Apple would have fixed this. Business Week picked it up. I mean, it's been all over the place, and Apple has apparently not. So just one more reason. Look, it's the easiest way to get a podcast. I'm not complaining. We're number 2 on there. We've been high up on the list for a long time, but it just shows you all of these polls, all of these numbers are nuts. They're worthless. John's been saying it for a long time.
However, we do enjoy being number 1.
Possible.
Under any circumstances.
Yeah, no matter what. So
pound it.
Yeah, we're clicking it right now. Well, that's the thing. I mean, Chris Pirillo was number 1 for a day, and I think it was probably the same thing he just mentioned on this podcast. I'm surprised Apple hasn't fixed it. I'm sure they will by the time you hear this. Anyway,
it's been a few days, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. But one good thing, this has proved that the iTunes New Music Tuesday doesn't have to be the number 1 podcast.
You know what? Let me say something. As soon as Nielsen or somebody that really does this stuff properly and they actually charge money to get these numbers, there's going to be no question in my mind that this will be the number 1 podcast in the country or the world.
Well, we know just for the number of downloads. No, he's right. And we know from the number of downloads we're getting on AOL that it's I suppose there are other people with 300,000 subscribers, but I find it hard to believe. And these are based on downloads, not.
Why would anyone want this?
That's what baffles me, frankly. I can't understand it. It's baffling. All right, let's get to some tech news. That's enough inside baseball. Roger, you clearing your sinuses there?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, can we get you a decongestant?
Here's one to lob in everybody's direction. Intel's announcing a new architecture.
Yay!
So at the IDF forum, basically Intel's going to be offering the deets on their next generation of multi-core processors.
August 23rd.
At IDF.
What new about this? I mean, I looked at the roadmap like a year ago, and I couldn't. What changed? I mean, what is going to be new?
It's all Pentium.
It's funny you should mention that, John, because that's the exact same reaction I had. Oh, they're moving to a new architecture. Oh, big news. No, they do this every country. They have to.
They say they haven't in 5 years. This is the equivalent of a Pentium 4 announcement, or
which Pentium 5 even.
Well, I think it's part of it. Now, Patrick, you probably follow because I actually, to be honest with you, kind of cheated. I sent a memo to AMD having them explain to me what their intelligence, and the guy was on vacation. So I couldn't get any answer.
A little irony.
But the question in my mind seems to be that is this new architecture actually Intel's true dual core? Because the dual core that they're bringing out initially is really a fake. It's really 2 chips kind of on one die, and then the true dual core, which is a separate type of architecture, I believe may be what this is. Do you know?
How is dual core different than 2 chips on one die?
Well, there's oh boy.
When we say it's actually the dual core is kind of 2 chips on one die, and the phony one is actually 2 chips in one chip package.
Yeah. There's a subtle but important difference between pretending your chip is 2 chips to the operating system and actually having 2 chips on the same.
So you could have 2 chips that's on the same plastic, that's different than having the equivalent of 2 chips worth of transistors on one die, or one chip.
One plastic package.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, basically,
it's faster.
It's, the demos of these things is astonishing.
Is this what Apple was thinking of when they made? Obviously, if Intel's going to announce it August 23rd, they knew when they were talking to Apple.
Well, Apple, Apple may or may not have cared about this. Apple's been stymied on making their.
They had no choice.
Yeah, their portables was faster for the last.
I agree with Pat. This is all about the mobile stuff for Apple.
And the G5 on the desktop is less of a concern. But basically, what's supposed to happen at IDF is they're supposed to announce the new code names for the future platforms, what's going on with the upcoming chips, and it's going to be interesting. A lot of they're going to be pushing a lot of the stuff we associate with the Centrino platform, which is the chip and the chipset and the 802, the wireless. But there's going to be single and what's going to be really cool is dual core Pentium M processors are supposed to be announced. Basically, the Yona stuff is supposed to become official. The details.
Isn't there something pointless about announcing a secret code?
Well, yeah, there is and there isn't. But if you look at, if you think about it this way, can you imagine? And this is an interesting thought. Being a PR person is complicated enough, right? Being a PR person for Intel while in a battle for the enthusiasts over the gaming market, while dealing with the fact that AMD is finally getting it together on mobile parts, after a number of years of making really interesting things and putting them in notebooks. It's in the way they're just hounded from every different direction for information. They probably are, there's information, there's leaked information that comes through the vendors they work with, and the suppliers. It's probably important for them to officially say this is the roadmap and this is what's moving forward. And the other thing is they're talking about 2006. They're getting the information out there. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
It's interesting timing because they're saying it's going to come out right at exactly the same time Apple said we'll have the high-end Macs.
And Intel's performance is kind of flatlined on the desktop processors.
Right.
So it's going to be the successor to the Pentium 4, and the architecture it's going to be.
What is it called? Pentium. Isn't there a Pentium 5 or no?
No.
Pentium 6? Pentium dozens?
I no longer.
At this point, I think
Pentium the 13th, Part 2.
I don't know. Can you imagine? There's got to be at least a half dozen companies in the United States, much less the rest of the world, that are just copying bizarre combinations of phenomes to create future product names.
Plaxo. Oh no, it's different.
And actually, the Plaxo guy wants to talk to us because he claims it's big stuff. We're going to have him on.
Yeah, John, you got me in a heap of hot water.
What?
Well, we were complaining about Plaxo last week.
Actually, I
wasn't complaining about it. You were.
I was, and Patrick was.
Yeah.
Do you like Plaxo, John?
I've used Plaxo. I find it somewhat annoying in various iterations, especially when you get these memos constantly. But I've gone over and visited with the guys over there. They seem honest. I like them.
I think they're honest. I don't blame them. I just think that this is a bad time to be asking for people's personal information.
Well, I did get somebody's reminder of a birthday the other day, and it was like someone I knew very well. I didn't know it was their birthday. I sent them a note. They were very pleased.
So Plaxo works. Well, we'll talk to Todd Masanis at some point about Plaxo. We also
they do have an extensive listing of their privacy. Their pledge to privacy.
I got to tell you about. I'm not maligning them, but anybody could say anything about privacy.
Well, I agree with you, Leo. But let me give you one other thing, which I actually mentioned to these guys, and I mentioned to all these guys who have these highfalutin privacy things. By the way, if you want to read a good one, read mine on my blog. By the way, it's very amusing. But I mentioned it to them. Yeah, this is the way you think right now, but what happens when you sell the company to somebody else?
Yep. And it's always says somewhere in there, subject to change without notification.
Yeah, so this is what bothers me the most.
I think there's also an issue here on this. Did you see this AOL giveaway? They're doing. They won an award against a spammer, New Hampshire spammer, 20-year-old guy. They got his Hummer 2 and $85,000 worth of gold bars. They're having a little giveaway, right? And you sign up. So you go to the site to sign up. What do they want? Your email address, your phone number, and your home address. Wait a minute. What are they going to do with that?
Send you a gold bar.
I'm still loving I'm still like Scott Richter and his company paying $7 million to settle the suit with Microsoft over spam. That's the one that's still, part of me's like, yeah, and part of me's like, if he's got $7 million, how much does he have salted away in the Bahamas and Swiss banks? And,
it's a 20-year-old kid with a Hummer 2 and 100,000 in gold bars.
Not Scott
Jesus.
Richter.
No, this other guy.
Yeah.
So, as long as we talk about OS 10, I suppose we should bring up this issue of the OS 10. I mean, I was at a meetup on Thursday, and 2 kids sidled up to me, and they said, here. I said, what's this? They said, OS 10.
On a CD?
On a CD!
For the PC?
For the PC!
Really? You have a copy?
I turned it down, John.
Oh,
you what?
Holy mackerel.
What, did you think you were going to get it was some Canadian plant and they were going to nail you at customs? Never say no to a free CD. Well, actually, the truth is that they probably could put some really nasty stuff on
I figured if they got it, I could get it.
You couldn't get rid of it.
And anyway, it required VMware, so I didn't want to bother.
That's kind of lame.
Well, a number of these OS 10s do. There's
some are running natively.
Yeah.
Some are running natively. Some are running on VMware.
Yeah, in fact, the same image that is set up to run on VMware can be installed on a hard disk, and it boots native, and it works just perfectly. There are sites now that list all the different chipsets that are supported by this. Mm-hmm. It took about a week for the TPM code to be removed from the kernel, and it's now out, and you can get it with BitTorrent.
See, that's interesting because they removed the code. It actually was just an extension, which they deleted. So... Does that mean that Apple didn't... Yeah, how serious was Apple at protecting it?
Yeah, it's just freaky.
I've seen like a bunch of rumors flying about that maybe it was Steve's way of showing how ineffective TPM.
Why would he want to do that?
Actually, what we're probably going to find out is that each of these individual installations of the operating system have a specific identity code in them. And there's developers that are receiving knocks on their doors right now.
Were you in Canada?
That are, you know what I mean? It's not you, Leo, but whoever released it is going to have a knock on their door from Apple's attack lawyers.
That's why I turned it down.
Oh, yeah, I would have never turned it down.
Well, I'll get it for you next time. You know what I'd like to do is put it on a tablet PC and see if we can make a tablet Mac. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be so fun.
I think it should because it's got Wacom drivers. It's got
almost as useful as
yeah, right. It'd be just as bad as it, but at least we'd have one. I think that'd be
also
cool.
The reports are when you run this thing not on top of VMware but natively, it blows the socks off of any OS X running on.
That's what I found interesting.
Yeah.
It's fast.
You've heard that?
Way faster.
Everybody's agreeing on that it's super fast.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's been optimized.
Well, maybe it's a better kernel than what's under Windows.
Maybe it's been optimized, whatever. I hope that's the one they sell is the optimized version.
But it is the full version. It isn't like some stripped down beta or something.
It looks now. There's videos on the net. You can watch people boot into it and run programs, and it looks pretty much like the full OS 10.
I'm telling you, this is the most sinister thing that's ever happened to the business.
As long as you have an SSE3 machine, one of the later P4s, it will run all the software.
So. What does this mean? Does it mean that Steve Jobs knew this was going to happen and
he had to?
I have a whole theory in my PCMag.com column this week. If anyone wants to go check it out,
I'd like to hear it. Why don't you just give us a preview?
I thought that exactly what you're saying. I think the whole thing is a scheme, to make it look like, oh no, we're trying to protect it. We're trying to protect it. We're doing everything we can. We don't want to compete with the. We don't want to hurt the feelings of the regular Mac users. We don't want to, step on Microsoft's territory. We're trying to protect it. Meanwhile, they do a crummy job of it because they're going to really roll it out eventually. And the end result is Steve's going to come out and say, well, this thing is in such demand. People were stealing it left and right. We had to release it to the general public.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what's the percentage in doing that. Maybe to convince the board. Maybe to.
I think it's a publicity stunt.
Publicity. But what you've done is created a whole bunch of hackers who figured out how to.
I was going to say it's a publicity stunt for a very narrow section of the public.
I know, but once if it becomes a scandal and he starts to threaten to sue people and he wants to do this and that and the other thing, it could get a lot of ink. And the general public, the regular PC user who maybe doesn't care about the Mac, would say, I wonder what the fuss is all about.
That might be.
Maybe I should go check this out.
Why are people working so hard to do this unless it's something better? Yeah. Well, also, he probably loves hearing how much faster it's running, right?
Well, and you know how Gates loves all this, too.
Oh, Bill's got to be having nightmares. He's got to be
there's got to be a nightmare.
That's wonderful.
This is not a good
No, actually I haven't seen either of those sites, but has anyone actually tried running normal Mac OS 10 apps on top of
it's got this Rosetta built into it, right, Steve?
Exactly. So PowerPC stuff will run on this natively also.
How well?
through the emulation layer. So as well as Apple was going to make it available for us.
Yeah, Rosetta is a pretty impressive piece of software, from what I've heard from people that are playing around with it.
I'm just curious as like how all their content creation software will run, and if whether or not they go, whoa, it runs faster on this.
The big thing they did at the announcement was they had the guys from Mathematica up. And basically, like 3 days, and take it with a grain of salt. 3 days before the conference, the president of Mathematica gets a phone call, says, "Could you bring your code, a compiler, and a tech, and meet us in Cupertino?" And he's like, "Why?" And they're like, "There's something we really want you to see. We'll get you a plane." They fly, so he flies out the tech, the code on a FireWire hard drive. They recompile it, and apparently with some minor tweaks, and this is, basically their code was in the right configuration. They weren't using the older code base, but they recompiled it, in a couple of hours, and it ran fine, and it ran great, and they didn't have problems. And Mathematica's got a lot of older algorithms. Now for somebody help me out here, Leo. There's Cocoa, there's
Carbon, Cocoa are the two different kinds.
And then there's what's the older
native,
one?
and then there's the compatibility, though. It's not compatibility, which nobody's using anymore.
Well, a lot of smaller vendors are still using that.
Most of the time, if you're running on OS 10, you're running as a Carbon application. Even Final Cut Pro is Carbon. If you've been written from scratch for OS 10, you'll be using Cocoa.
Right.
Mathematica was probably Carbon. I would be surprised if it was Cocoa.
Yeah. But it's the idea is that all the older software, it's time to get on the Cocoa or Carbon, and the newer stuff should recompile with no problem.
So I should have taken that disk, huh?
John? I just sent you emails that gives you the string you can Google for. You can find the BitTorrent and step-by-step installation instructions all over the place now.
But John, if I had taken that disk, crossed the border, brought it into the United States, and then handed it to you, who would have gone to jail?
I don't think, the point is, well, for one thing, it's silly to think that anybody would go to jail. But the point is that you're actually writing for Wired magazine now. I'm a journalist. I write for public. I'm not like a phony journalist.
Well,
they're doing research on this kind of stuff is common to do. It's an investigative thing. I don't see that there's an issue here.
Well, the only problem is the DMCA.
It's a good thing I'm not writing for the New York Times.
Well, you know what? The DMCA, they're not going to push it when it comes to something like this because this is already out there all over the place. Yeah. And were they going to make an example of the wrong people? I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. Right. By the way, Valerie Plame, CIA agent. What about Bob Novak? I know this is completely off the point, but
why didn't he get indicted? Or why didn't he get?
I love the way that he got thrown off CNN. Was that wild?
Didn't he just get up and storm out because he got in an argument? He got in an argument with.
Well, he first swore in a way that you can't on public TV. This was live program, and then took his microphone off, stood up, and stomped off the set.
All this to avoid being asked about.
Exactly. Yes. He was avoidance behavior.
Yeah.
Because he was going to Carville was going to ask him about this situation with Plam, and then he got wind of it from somebody, and then so he decided to walk from the show.
Would you ever do that, John, if I were to ask you, I don't know, about Skull and Bones or something? I mean,
I'd laugh and then I'd accuse you of something.
That's the way. Take the offensive. The offensive.
Having only seen about 30 seconds of Novak in my life, I'd like to say on a scale of 1 to 10 in intelligence and sophistication, I'm pretty sure Dvorak knocks him well into the lower percentiles.
I really doubt it, to be honest.
He's a smart guy, but anyway. Hey, how about this mobile phone? The caviar virus spreading through the World Athletic Championships. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, 19 people got it, but still,
it's a proof of concept.
It's a lot, and of course, it's a mobile phone virus that spreads via Bluetooth, so you have to be in proximity. You can't, So what do you have? Well, you're in Helsinki, the mobile phone capital of the world. Everybody's got Nokias and Ericssons, right? Everybody. Sometimes
it's Europe. They all have those GSM.
They've all got their phones, and this caviar virus is a Symbian. I think it's Symbian-based virus. Anyway, it requires Bluetooth. Mm-hmm. Apparently, it did. At least several dozen people caught it in the stadium because they were in proximity.
Right. Well, it's interesting. In Europe, I was actually reading some numbers today that say in Europe there's about 19% of the phones are Bluetooth enabled. In the States, it's about 7%.
There you go. So there's a higher penetration. Mm-hmm. The problem is you have to say to Bluetooth accept files,
right?
Which is not the default. I don't know why you would do that.
Get those games.
You want to download those ringtones.
Or the wallpapers.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't. I can't remember what copy. That's not the one that turns all your icons into skull and bones, is it? There's one that does that.
That's pretty funny.
I think it infects smartphones running Symbian Series 60 using Bluetooth.
Symbian Series 60 phone. Yeah.
It drains the power of the infected phones as it tries to propagate, but otherwise relatively harmless, according to an article on the Register.
Drains the power because it's always looking for other Bluetooth phones.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to. That was Robert Young on the phone, the man who started Red Hat. I think we had him on the screensavers. He gave me a red hat, which somebody snagged.
No, I remember it very well. You gave it to one of my guests. What's his name? The guy who invented fuzzy logic?
Yeah, the guy who invented fuzzy logic said, oh, that's it. Well, here's what happened. He's sitting there. I can't remember his name. He's the guy who invented fuzzy logic, right? And he says, wow, that's a nice red hat. I'd sure like that red hat. Boy, I wish you'd give me that red hat.
Oh, my goodness.
So I had to give him the red hat.
You didn't say give it to me.
I think you're exaggerating.
That's not what I
guessed. I'm being a good host.
It was a great guest.
I tried to get a couple of Hawaiian shirts off you. You never coughed them up.
You should have let me know, John. We have ways of providing Leo's wardrobe. A lot of people had keys for that wardrobe.
You know, I'm resurrecting those Hawaiian shirts now that Call for Help is... Oh, I can't tell you. I'm so sorry. I wish I could. It's a secret. Until somebody puts out a press release. It's like, why aren't they putting out a press release? Think of all the publicity they've missed out. I could have mentioned it on my radio show. We could have mentioned it on TWiT. Can't say a word.
Because it's all about control, Mr. Laporte, and who has it, and apparently you don't.
Anyway.
We definitely don't want to prevent it from happening.
So I'm not going to say anything. That's exactly right. I don't want to... They win.
Well, you've already said, guess what about Call for Help about 6 or 8 times so people might be able to guess.
Really good news.
It's being translated into Chinese. Leo's finally my major pays off. That's right. You can actually speak Chinese.
There's more Chinese than anybody else.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah, the penetration of PCs in China is high.
John, is there anything you want to talk about? Because Bob is going to unfortunately have to use this phone line.
Yeah, I'm going to, just the one thing is, there's a thing out there called the Job Destruction Newsletter that's done by Rob Sanchez.
I love this.
And he got killed by AOL. They blocked him, and apparently these other people have been having trouble with AOL, in some of their spam filters. And I've noticed that this is going on with a lot of these different systems. AT&T has a blacklisting strategy where you get on this blacklist for 30 days, whether you like it or not. You can't get off of it. They don't figure that there's any reason.
I agree. It's a real problem.
And so he's lost like 85 of his subscribers just because, some unknown reason, or, his host or God knows what. And, I decided, in fact, I'm writing about this for the magazine. There's something onerous about these two trends. One is this type of email blocking, and the other one is I think the consolidation of all these services, where we're only going to have maybe one or two major, backbones in this country, and if somebody wants to do some IP filtering, you can pretty much control the way people, what they can say out there.
I got blacklisted by one of there are a number of the Orbs, Maps, but there are a number of other real-time black hole services where if your IP address or range or your domain name is perceived by some mysterious black-cloaked figure as being a spammer, they put you on this list, and anybody who subscribes to this list, and I think it's probably what happened with AOL, they probably subscribed to a black hole list, will just automatically dump your addresses. And Leoville got on one of these lists, and it was a real problem because my ISP started subscribing to the black hole list. And I said, you're blocking everything. So I think that the problem is there's no appeal. These black hole lists, they're effective, but who's the one? Who makes these decisions?
Yeah, all you have to do is say no HTML, and you have no.
And yes, we've come full circle, ladies and gentlemen.
It's all Gibson's fault.
John, it's great.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. I'll talk to you guys later.
Dvorak.org, that's the blog, and catch him in PC Magazine and back again next time on TWiT. And by the way, I think it hasn't been firmed up yet, but we're hoping to do the show. We're going to start doing the show live, as we've mentioned before, September 18th at Noonan's. But we're hoping to do a live broadcast from the Apple Store in San Francisco on Labor Day weekend. So we haven't confirmed that yet. We've been invited by Apple once we work out all the details.
We'll host a rave there.
Wouldn't that be fun? Well, I think the store closes early Sunday evening anyway, so it would open just for TWiT.
Maybe we could grill.
Barbecue, everybody. Is Labor Day weekend when you have to stop wearing white shoes?
Yes.
Okay.
And white belts. Although one might say that they're really out of fashion unless you're impossibly hip.
Do you have a white belt?
No.
I don't.
For any of a number of good reasons.
We're gonna get Bob Young on here in just a minute, and also, as I mentioned earlier, Mike Lazazzaro will join us. He is the guy who discovered this hole in the iTunes Music Store's top subscriptions.
Keep cooking.
And Patrick, what have you found there? That's interesting.
We're going to talk about some PSP hacks later on.
Wow.
I'm fascinated by the PlayStation Portable. Steve, it could be if we can figure out a decent way to put ebooks on it, it could be a perfect ebook platform.
Oh, it's a very nice screen.
Yeah. What kind of battery life?
Very good. Over 4 hours with a single battery, I think. Is it 4 hours?
Yeah, I'll tell you, we had it on the flight to France in April, and it lasted the whole flight. Hey, there's Bob Young, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say hello to the man who started Red Hat, and now he's a real Lulu. Bob Young, thanks for joining us on This Week in Tech.
Hey, Leo, it's a pleasure.
It's good to have you on. You were on the Screensavers, weren't you?
Sorry, I was into Screensavers?
Were you ever on our TV show, The Screensavers?
Oh, golly, I don't think so. But,
somebody from Red Hat gave me a red hat, and we were talking about that. And I was trying.
How long ago?
Oh, it would have been 5 years ago, probably.
Oh, okay. Well, then that might have been.
You've forgotten everything from that time?
I have. I'm very focused on this Lulu thing.
Well, we'll talk about Lulu in just a second because I think it's a wonderful idea. But let's talk about you're from Canada.
I am.
And
my outs and abouts will give me away.
And you, in fact, don't you own a CFL franchise?
Yeah, I do, but I'm not admitting to that one.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll tell him it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Very good.
How are they doing these days?
Well, that's why I'm not admitting to.
When did you found Red Hat, Bob?
Back in the spring of '93, we founded it as a quasi-publishing thing. We were doing both newsletters on the East Coast, New York Unix magazine, as well as running a little mail order business for Unix products. And we got into Linux, and my customers started telling me about this Red Hat thing. So I contact Mark Ewing. We go back and forth. I end up ordering 300 copies from Mark. This is when we're chatting on the phone. Dead silence at the end of the phone. It turns out Mark was only thinking of manufacturing 300 copies.
You just bought his entire run.
Exactly. But I knew how little I was paying for these 300 copies. So I knew this kid was starving to death. I needed a product that I could put a brand on, and we had a marriage made in heaven.
Well, of course, it was really the definitive. It still is, I think, the definitive Linux installation. Very successful for many, many years. We loved it. We installed it, and we installed its derivative Mandrake several times on the Screensavers. And I'm pretty sure, you may not remember it, but I'm pretty sure you were on the show. In fact, I know you were on the show.
Yeah, he was on the show. Where do you think you got the hat from?
Where else would I have gotten a red hat, a red fedora?
Yeah. No, if it was 5 years ago, that probably was me. I remember being on the show. What I didn't remember is that the show was called Screensaver.
Yes, well, you're not alone. A lot of people have forgotten that. So now tell us about Lulu. You're doing something, I think that's, in fact, it's too bad that John C. Dvorak had to get off the line to make room for you, because he was one of the first people that said to me that print on demand was the next big thing.
It is the next big thing.
Tell us about Lulu.
Well, the whole point to Lulu, it was really twofold. One, I had done a book when I was with Red Hat called Under the Radar, and it was really trying to get out Red Hat's version, why Red Hat was doing open source software the way we were doing it, and why we were not like Microsoft. A lot of people, this is 99, we're trying to give Red Hat a hard time, and, had this constant line about Red Hat was the Microsoft of the Linux business, and I'm going, hold on, guys. Our whole brand relates to open source, i.e. we give away our software under a license that allows you to do whatever you want with it. How can we be the Microsoft of this business?
You're more like the goodwill of the software industry.
Yeah, exactly. So that was what sort of the point to the book. But the book, for all that we sold like 20,000 copies, didn't make any money because they printed 30,000 copies, and they ended up sending 10,000 copies to the landfill. And then on top of that, the publisher both kept the vast majority of the revenue and refused to let me make any changes to it. I still owe apologies to half of the folks in the Linux space because the publisher rushed it into print and didn't do any fact checking. So things like Jamie Zawinski's last name bears no resemblance to his actual last name.
Dear.
And so I looked at all of those. Then we also looked at the phenomenon that with all this expansion of IP, copyright going from 20 years to 100 years, we go, there's got to be a better model for publishing than the current publishing industry model, where the publisher is in control of the author's content. And worse than that, the publishing industry works as a bottleneck. The vast majority of good books never get published.
So what you do is you don't print the book until somebody buys the book.
That's exactly right. These are these giant, best way to think of it, what Xerox and guys like Kodak and others are building, is how your office printer can print a file, the first file might be a letter to the editor, and the next file is a marketing brochure, and the third file is an invoice. But the printer doesn't actually care whether it's 4-color or 1-color or, how it's formatted. Well, think of that office laser printer blown up into a room-sized piece of machinery where instead of the file being a letter or 2 or 3 pages, the file is a 300-page book that goes in one end and plops out the other end as a book into a UPS shipping envelope ready to go to the customer.
That sounds like it's really cool to watch. What kind of printers are you using?
I'm sorry?
What kind of printers are you using?
These are the big Xerox iGen and DocuTech.
How many pages per minute are we talking about here?
Oh, yeah.
Or is it pages a second? It probably is pages a second,
Exactly. It's books per minute.
Wow.
Is what we're talking about.
That's quite amazing. Does it bind them? Does it do the full make a book thing?
Yes. What we're working on is turning them into hardcover books as well. Right now, these things exactly like, say, an O'Reilly softcover manual.
Same type quality?
Very much the same. You could not tell the difference.
That's really amazing.
If you were not trained in the printing industry. The printers get their magnifying glass out and they go, aha, right. This was laser printed versus offset printed, right. But the rest of us cannot tell the difference.
So that would have solved a number of problems. You wouldn't have printed 10,000 more copies than people wanted.
That's right.
There's profit in it. And you could have fixed that last name as soon as you saw it was a problem.
That's right. Jamie wouldn't think I would deflate. Jamie Zawinski, by the way, was the guy at Netscape who was in charge of open sourcing the Netscape browser.
Oh, well, he did a good job.
Back in '98. Yeah, it's since gone on to great fame, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I really like it. It's at lulu.com. And, initially you might say, well, it looks like a vanity press, but really it's really much more sophisticated than that.
That's right, because what we're creating is a marketplace. The other piece you didn't catch is the economics of it are the reverse of the existing publishing industry. You, the author, keep 80% of the revenue.
I like that.
A typical contract, if you can get one from a traditional publisher, is maybe 10% of the revenue, and that's all after the publisher has deducted all of his expenses. So if we can create a marketplace, if this thing turns into an eBay-like phenomenon where people, they first go to Amazon to, find Harry Potter or find a book on SendMail, but they then come to Lulu if they can't find the books they're looking for on Amazon. If we can get ourselves to that stage, we'll have really created something interesting. In the meantime, it's of huge value to anyone who has a book in them and an audience who would benefit from that book.
How many books do you have so far?
About 30,000 print titles. 30,000. That is growing by over 1,000 titles a month.
Oh, that's go ahead. David Prager has a question for you about this.
No, the quick question is, if I publish a book through Lulu and I want to sell a lot of it and get like an Amazon ranking? Is that possible? Since people are used to looking at rankings like that?
Yes, is the short answer. We are tied into Amazon, so you can buy our books through Amazon. It's just not as profitable for the author to go through Amazon.
They take a bigger cut.
Of course, by going through Amazon, he addresses a bigger market.
You also offer these books as a download, so you don't even have to kill a tree to do it.
That's exactly right. We have some key books. One, a Cisco book by Matt Basham, where the number of downloads, well, he offered a free download because Matt Basham was interested in getting a better Cisco training manual out into the marketplace for all the students who needed to learn Cisco routers. And the cheapest thing they could buy was, a $50 book, so he was trying to get a book out that was competitive. So he offered a very, very inexpensive download. And I believe we're in the tens of thousands of electronic downloads.
That's remarkable.
Cisco book.
Now, one thing a publisher would say is, and this is the same thing the movie companies say and the record companies say, is, well, yeah, but we provide distribution and marketing. Well, I guess you've got distribution handled, but what about marketing? How do you, I mean, you're not getting it on the bookshelf in the bookstore. How do people market their book?
Well, all the most successful authors to date on Lulu are authors that we think of as having both content and an audience.
Already have an audience.
Yeah, so if you, for example, Leo, wrote the definitive book on podcasting, you would just have to tell your audience that you've written the definitive book on podcasting. Go to Lulu, and for $29.95, you could be an expert in podcasting. You would be very successful on Lulu. On the other hand, if you wanted to become J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter or John Grisham, there's no question Random House provides a very valuable service that, we're years away from replicating.
But at some point, I imagine, look at J.K. Rowling came out of nowhere.
And she also suffered from 15 rejection letters.
What if she had gone to Lulu? And found an audience? There's no reason why eventually people wouldn't just go there and buy. At some point, I guess it won't look much different going to Lulu than going to Amazon.
Yeah, of course. I'd love to hear you say that, Leo, because we got a long way to go from where we are today.
Well, I remember when Amazon was just a little hole in the wall. You sell more than books. You sell calendars and other things, too, yes?
We're doing DVDs, so you can sell your book either as a printed book or an electronic download or as a DVD. But now that we do DVDs, you can also sell your software package through Lulu. You can sell your videos through Lulu. You can sell your movie through Lulu, for that matter. So we're trying to do for the next generation of movie makers, a Blair Witch Project was something that, a couple of bright kids out of movie school could create, but how do they get it to market? And that's what we're trying to provide.
If you want to try it out, there are some free downloads. I know there's some free video downloads on the site, so people could see what it would be like, the experience of buying something on Lulu.
I would encourage everyone just to bookmark it, simply lulu.com, and don't hesitate to tell me. I'm Bob at Lulu what you liked, or better yet, what you didn't like about the experience.
I don't normally put people on to market stuff on this show, but this to me is a key part of all of this explosion of content. Mm-hmm. People creating their own thing. Well, you can create your own radio show, you can create your own TV show now, and you can create your own book.
I think you guys are onto the right point, and the point actually is that how mature is the Internet? And a lot of people think the sort of, you go to MBA school and the kid's coming out saying, hey, where is going to be the next big thing?
Right.
And everyone's going, well, it's not the Internet anymore. Google and eBay and Amazon have cornered the Internet. And I'm going, the Internet is still the Wild West. There's lawlessness, there's a lack of measurement. It looks like the Wild West. And the next generation of interesting things, for example, your show, podcasting didn't exist, 6 months ago?
That's quite amazing, really.
So it's a very exciting time still on the internet.
I agree. Bob, it's great to talk to you. I don't suppose you have any more red hats, do you?
No, I'm doing orange hats.
I'll look for them on Lulu.
We'd be happy to send you one, Leo.
LULU.com. Bob Young, the man who put Red Hat on the map, is now looking to put print on demand on the map, and I think it's very exciting. Bob,
I'm trying to put authors on the map.
That's a better way to put it, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
It's not about the technology. It's about the people and using the technology.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Good.
Thanks, Bob. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for
Take care.
telling the story, guys.
Yeah, take care. Isn't that neat? I think that we're really in some sort of revolution here. That technology has given everybody the chance to publish, whether it's a book or a podcast or whatever. One more story. I just love this story, and I'd love to hear your comments on this. Apple goes to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. You know where I'm going here, and says, hey, we'd like to patent the iPod interface. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office says, oh, gosh, you're 6 months too late. Microsoft has already patented it.
Well, it's interesting. It's not, and it's when you start reading into it, it's a little.
Well, it's not exactly the iPod interface.
Yeah.
It's hierarchical menus.
It's basic. It's like the ability to track stuff and create in a portable multimedia device, a method, apparatus, and system for providing.
Read between the lines. It's clearly Microsoft said, if we could only patent this, then Apple would have to pay a license fee.
Not even that.
This happened back in 2002, and
Apple released the iPod in 2001.
Precisely.
They've got prior art,
but this is also But this is a case. The patents. I mean, this is like what a friend of mine always reminds me. This is about the law. This isn't about reason. They're two entirely separate things, And it's like you look at some of the patents that are out are so spurious and so far in advance of any physical object that's going to exist in the real world. You know what I mean? The people are patenting, they're patenting nanotechnology concepts, and I mean this is, it's not like the physical iPod interface is what they're trying to patent here. It's my understanding that it was the system of noting, basically what items go into your playlist and whether or not you can eliminate.
However, if Microsoft decides to enforce this patent, Apple would have to pay them a license fee for the iPod interface they invented a year before the patent.
On all the 21 million iPods sold?
No, just on. Well, that's a good question. No, I think it would be on future.
Yeah. I mean, this is you got to remember something.
Apple says we're going to court. They said, well, look, we've got prior art. We'll put this over.
Apple also owns the patent for the cup holder for the iPod automobile dock. You know what I mean?
And this is
the Microsoft claims they have the right to they have a patent on anything that involves a power plug, a 12-volt power socket in your car, an FM tuner, and you know what I mean? It's.
I love Microsoft's quote though. You saw what Microsoft said. They said, oh, well, we frequently license these patents to other people. We'd be glad to license it back to Apple. Oh, my.
That would be pretty scary, though.
But they must have some sort of a blanket cross-licensing agreement from the old...
They do. This is what it says. This is a quote from Microsoft's Director of IP Licensing, David Kiefer. He said, quote, in general, our policy is to allow others to license our patents so they can use our innovative methods in their products. Microsoft and Apple have previously licensed their respective patent portfolios to one another, and we maintain a good working relationship with Apple. They're basically, this is a shot across the bow saying, and by the way, pay up. I just think this is wild. I wonder if this,
as soon as we can buy
what does it say about Apple, though, for not patenting their own interface?
Well, that was dumb.
They did. It was
later, 6 months later. Now, here's the other issue. As a consumer advocate, I should really be in Microsoft's tent, because what does this mean? Well, it means that other companies could produce MP3 players that are as easy to use as an iPod.
No, actually it doesn't, because a lot of the elements that
there's more than just
it's a lot more than just this big. You can take everything that's in this patent, implement it, and have a worthless and ugly interface.
Good. You make me feel better, because I do feel like this is kind of a rotten kind of a thing to do.
It still amazes me, though, that patents in general are even used to cover such things as an interface. It's like saying the play-pause button is patentable, or...
Sure, it is.
Or one-click shopping.
One-click shopping, it is. Oh. That's what patents are for, though. A patent protects a method. That's exactly what a patent is all about.
Except part of the patent law says that you're not able to patent something that would be obvious to someone trained in the art.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
I guess a pause play would not be would be obvious, yes.
It might not have been obvious in 65.
or a system that allows you to keep track and manage, say, 10,000 plus multimedia files on a portable device.
That's not obvious.
I don't know. It just seems like there's so much more room for improvement that decisions like these within the patent community.
Well, it stifles innovation. It stifles innovation. That's right. Its goal is to protect you and allow you to make some money for a limited period of time on your innovation.
It's actually designed to encourage innovation. The idea that you can create something and it will be protected under the law so that other people won't steal your design. You know, it's so much more complicated now.
Well, remember that the alternative that companies used to have was to keep things as a trade secret.
Right.
And so, for example, like the formula for Coca-Cola is, they've never patented that because to patent it is to publish it publicly. And the idea was that by publishing publicly, then other inventors could work off of your ideas and build on them. So what we're seeing is a real subversion of the process because someone who patents a menu system for a multimedia device is never had the opportunity to make that a trade secret. It's already in the public domain by the fact that they're using it.
Or you could say that only the most obvious techniques and methods are the ones that are patented.
Right. I think there's one solid lesson here, though, is if you're going to introduce a product, even if you don't think it's going to be revolutionary, and I find it difficult to believe Jobs didn't think this was going to be. That's a scary thought.
Patent away.
Patents early, not late. It's kind of mind blowing that they waited almost a year to file the patents on this.
I mentioned earlier in the show this really weird hack to the iTunes Music Store, and it explains a lot about why the positions are jumping around. They're so volatile in the top 20. On the phone with us right now, the guy who discovered it. And actually, Roger, he's the Roger Chang of Call for Help now.
Oh, geez.
Mike Lazazara. Hello, Mike.
Hi there. How are you guys doing?
Calling from Toronto. And I say that, Roger, because you were the guy who, kept Call for Help running, and that's what Mike is. And just like you, he does free files. And maybe someday he'll have a Google ad that says, Mike Lazazara says, I've been using it for years. I still see that Google ad, by the way, Roger.
So that's funny. That's like 2 years since I actually said that.
What is it? It says Roger Chang said I wouldn't be caught dead without it, or what was it?
I said I used it once and I can't stop using it. But that was over a weekend.
And the ad's running 2 years later. What is it for? I don't even remember what it's for.
I don't remember.
Isn't that funny? But it's good for you, Roger, because your name is out there. So, Mike, tell us what happened that you discovered this kind of hack to the iTunes Music Store?
Well, I was producing an online demo for our IPTV kind of show called Command N.
Yep.
And I was clicking on the iTunes several times trying to get the demo correct for putting it on the web. And I noticed after about an hour or so, our ranking had jumped up. And I thought that was kind of weird because we kind of hovered in the same position for weeks. So I went back and I clicked it a couple more times, like 20 or 30 times, and we jumped up again. I was like, what's going on here? So I contacted one of the guys I work with down here from techfile.ca, and I had him just do it. I could just click on something 100 times, something like that. He clicked on it and came back and he said, you know what, it works. It bumped up your ratings.
So you published this on your blog.
So we published it, and we essentially said that what you can essentially do is click on the subscribe button in iTunes 50, 100, or 1,000 times, and it will put you higher on the ranking system.
Now, when you click it, don't you have to then go back? I mean, isn't this kind of a tedious process?
It's just one click in the iTunes Music Store to go back to the podcast main menu.
Okay.
And you have to click it. So it is a little tedious. However, if it's an indie podcast or someone who doesn't have high rankings, you can essentially take yourself from 200 to number one over a weekend kind of a thing.
We talked to somebody at the meetup on Thursday, and we were talking about this, and I said, well, look at this French language podcast that's so high. He said, yeah, I did that.
Yes.
Viva la Québécois!
I did that. It isn't that difficult. Actually, I'm doing it right now, and it is pretty simple. And I hope you guys have all been doing that. So you don't actually have to subscribe. You're not actually subscribing. You're just pressing the button.
you're just pressing the button, and iTunes is just counting the amount of button presses as opposed to the amount of downloads or actual subscriptions people are subscribing to in the store.
This was picked up everywhere, and I'm guessing just by the volatility of the list that a lot of people heard about it and did it, because the list has been jumping all over the place.
Yeah, there's been Italian podcasts that have been jumping to the very top in Canada and the United States. There have been French podcasts, and although I don't doubt there's a large Italian or French population in North America, I can't imagine them being more popular than some of these big podcasts out there.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, definitely.
That's pretty funny. So, how is Command N doing now?
Well, we jumped to the very top initially, and then we've settled back to our normal position, which was about 22, 23 kind of a thing.
It's a good podcast. Amber and Mike do it.
Sorry?
Hey, I just moved us to number 1.
I'm so heartbroken.
You know, a couple of days ago, Patrick sent me a screenshot. Look, we're number 1 on the iTunes.
Well, it was last night. I've been offline for 48 hours. I've been moving furniture in my house. Haven't been online for 48 days.
I'm elite, man. I'm so elite. I just hacked it, man. So I hope Apple doesn't ban us forever from the store. Now, another thing happened. Now, Kevin Rose isn't with us right now, but you probably know the inside story on this. Dig Nation rose very quickly. That's Kevin and Alex Albert's podcast. Rose very quickly and then disappeared completely. What happened there? Really? Were they getting punished?
Well, no, actually, it was totally different.
Kevin thought they were getting punished, didn't he?
Yeah, we all thought, and I thought I punished Kevin, and I was hiding from him at the meetup because I thought he was going to kill me or something like that.
And he didn't do it, but the story broke on Dig. And
exactly. It broke on Dig, and there was like 700 digs on it, kind of thing. So I was assuming that people were doing this click thing, and then they said, okay, enough with Dig Nation, off you go, kind of a thing.
Right.
But it turns out that someone actually in iTunes, all you do is click report this podcast, and you can say, you want to take it off because it's profane or because it's your own, you don't want it listed there anymore, and they don't actually check the email address that you're sending it from.
Oh, man.
So they'll take it off without anyone even contacting.
So somebody asked that Dig be taken off, and Apple did it?
And they just did it. They took it off completely. They took it off the main banner in the center, and they took it off the whole listings. And then Kevin was having a freak out, I'm sure.
Oh, I don't blame him.
Yeah, of course. And then it got worked out that this was what the issue was, and they were put back on.
This is going to spawn a whole lot of dirty tricks among the podcast community now, don't you think?
Who's number 1?
Definitely.
How long before we're number 1 right now? But how long before you think somebody calls up and says, "Hi, this is Leo. Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and I don't want my podcast on."
It wouldn't surprise me if someone's already tried that, maybe, perhaps. I don't know, maybe they've only learned their lesson about being careful about not pulling things off without checking email addresses and stuff like that.
We don't know if Apple learns lessons. They still haven't fixed this subscribe button.
It's not even a hack, it's just a flaw in the way they programmed it.
They should count downloads, or they should at least count real subscribe. I mean, they own the client. They own iTunes. They could do it better, don't you think?
Totally.
Yeah.
Apple learns lessons. They have a 2-button mouse now.
Well, sort of.
It's more of a
1-button, 2-button mouse.
Yeah, it's kind of a 3-button, 1-scrolly thingy mouse.
And that doesn't even work very well.
If we get booted off iTunes, I'm blaming you, Mike Lazazara.
Don't bother blaming me. I can do
fault.
anything, I swear.
Roger Chang says, I tried Mike Lazazara and I couldn't stop.
That sounds so dirty.
I'm looking for that ad on my next Google ad. Mike, thanks for joining us on This Week in Tech, Mike.
Thank you very much for having me.
Congratulations on all the coverage you've been getting.
Thank you very much. Can I plug something here?
Yeah.
Should I plug Command N?
Anything you want.
Okay.
PlasticTrees.net, Command N.
Yes.
CommandN.tv.
Exactly. Those are the 2 best places to go for your web news and.
But the best site on the internet, nakedmike.com. All right, Mike. Enough of that. The whole time.
Here comes our profanity suspension.
The whole time, I was taping in Toronto last week. And every 5 minutes, he'd come running up to me with his, say, look, we're another track pack. He was so excited. He was getting all this coverage on it.
Where did the name Plastic Trees come from?
Oh, I don't know. I just hung up on it.
Radiohead song.
Oh, is it?
Plastic Trees.
Roger's the guy, a walking encyclopedia. He's amazing.
You know what's really fun is Roger in one of those trivia games at a bar.
Oh, I bet. Is he really good?
Yeah. You can make money with Roger.
Roger, which flies faster, an F-18 Tomcat or...
The such thing as an F-18.
Oh, look at that. He's good.
Yeah, it's an F-14 Tomcat. F-18 Hornet.
All right, I'm going to plug a couple of things, and we're going to wrap this thing up. Hornet. Steve Gibson and I have decided to start doing a security podcast. Steve is so good at reading the heavy-duty, high-end security manuals about how stuff works and then boiling it down so that you and I can understand it and protect ourselves.
What do you think about the name Security Now?
Security Now with Steve Gibson. I love it.
Yeah.
I was thinking something like Safe and Sound, because it's... but
I like Security Now.
Yeah, thank you.
I like both senses of it. Is like what's happening in security now, and you need security now.
So, do you want to host, Steve, the website for it? You really should, probably. That's your thing.
We'll figure that out.
All right. But we're going to start feeding that. I'll tell you what, we will start feeding it on the TWiT feed initially, just so that people know that it's there, and then we'll move it off onto its own feed once it gets some legs of its own. So look for that on Thursday. Dvorak and I are also going to start doing a Wednesday shorty. What I'd like to do is have kind of 5 days a week little short podcasts that updates on... What are you looking at?
Oh, no, I'm just waiting to see what it does to the TWiT podcast and whether that undermines it.
No, it's not going to undermine it. It'll support it.
Okay.
No, I promise I won't. This is our bread and butter, baby. This is our ticket home, man. This is the future of the internet, don't you know? We're number 1 on iTunes.
Everyone, click faster, damn you! The thrill of the rankings overcomes the carpal tunnel syndrome.
I want to once again very much thank America Online and AOL Radio for providing the bandwidth for this. We really couldn't provide the number of feeds that we do provide without help from AOL. It's music.aol.com. And we are, I think, very soon going to start appearing on their podcast channel. I don't know if they've gone live with that. I think it's imminent. But you'll be able to listen to the podcast on AOL Radio if you subscribe to AOL Radio, as well as, of course, in the usual methods. And, of course, don't forget, September 18th, live from Noonan's, we begin our live broadcasts. I think we're ready for that. And I'll let you know, guys and gals, about the Apple Store thing. If the Apple Store thing goes well, I think we could do a tour. You want to do a tour of Apple stores around the world? Paris,
really funny.
Soho,
You quit my job once and for all.
That's it, Roger.
You don't seem to understand that we'll be paying our own way to get to the...
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I understand, but don't destroy my fantasy.
Roger Chang says, I used it once and I couldn't stop.
Roger, there are a number of restaurants that are hiring right now in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Roger's very happily and gainfully employed, I must say.
Who have you been talking to? I'm sure you're Roger Chang.
Oh, all right. I thought he was. So what do I know?
I'm gainfully employed.
Okay, we'll leave it at that then.
He's bitter. He's angry. He's gonna get it.
Roger's always been bitter. Roger's never not been bitter.
This is true.
This is just Roger. He's one of those guys. He's just. We love him. It's not a bad thing. He's Eeyore, basically. Okay.
I see the dark clouds, every silver lining.
Exactly. On the other hand, Robert Heron, who can see through any skirt. I mean,
hey now. I was listening to the previous podcast, and you were talking about me being misogynist.
Yes. Well, that's not quite right.
No, it's not true at all.
Had a beautiful time in Mexico.
Did you? Did you meet some fine foxes?
Beautiful women from around the world hang out down there.
See what I'm saying?
That's not misogynistic.
Not at all. He loves women. What am I saying? Of course. I love women. Steve Gibson, who is the king of security, and will be back Thursday on this channel. Anything you would like to plug besides grc.com and the fabulous SpinRite?
That pretty much covers it.
That's it. SpinRite is the disk recovery software par excellence. I used it once, and I couldn't stop, says Leo Laporte. It's true. I have it on it's on my recovery disk, and I do frequently use it, and it's a great program to save your data and your drive. Roger is on GameSpot.com. Patrick, this week was setting up. Can we talk about that, or is it
sure?
Getting PC Magazine's video department.
Actually, it's
all ZD or
it's all Zip Davis. We're going to be doing. Basically Tuesday we're launching a live half-hour online television show that's going to be available for download and. Well, if it works. I mean, you know how DeVorak's always like, I got to get you guys a TriCaster.
Right.
We're actually using the TriCaster.
Awesome.
Well, the TriCaster folks are kind enough to FedEx a replacement since we had what they...
Did you fry it?
We didn't fry it. The software ate its own tail, parts of it. It's an amazing machine, so we're working out some developmental issues with it.
Your early days.
Yeah. So it's...
So Tuesday that'll go live at extremetech.com?
No, I'll post the information up on Twitter.
Put it in the show notes. Okay.
Because we're still... It looks like we're either going to be on a subpage of PC Magazine or there's going to be something like...
Will you be on camera?
I'll be on camera.
Yeah, baby. Patrick's return to television.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. Patrick's return to video, I think, is a more accurate description.
IP TV.
Oh, yeah.
IP TV. You can catch me on Call for Help, now worldwide. Details to come. Stay tuned. And, of course, on KFI Radio in Los Angeles and places around the block. We want to thank our Mark Blasco for our opening theme. What a great job. And the incredible Ashley TWiT, who is our composer for the closing theme, doing the TWiT. He is amazing. And the TWiT itself, the TWiT logo from Dorothy Yamamoto. And, of course, don't forget our website, thisweekintech.com, where you'll find the fabulous buttons that say donate. Your donation does keep the show commercial-free and helps pay our expenses. We're acquiring quite a bit of equipment. I think we need a truck. We need a van. We need roadies. Actually, I got us a roadie.
You have a trunk.
I have a truck, but we've got we're getting the equipment. We just need a few more things for our live broadcasts. Click those donate buttons. That's all I can say, ladies and gentlemen. Another TWiT is in the can. Do you think the Apple Store's going to mind that we're recording onto a PC?
We'll just not mention it.
We won't mention it.
We'll paint a big apple on the side.
They might be annoyed if it was a PC running the Mac OS.
Let's not do that, shall we?
I want to do that so bad now.
I put the little TWiT logo on my business card, and I think it's actually quite good. Anybody who wants to use that, go right ahead.
Oh, that's so nice.
Isn't that cute? I want to make a little...
It actually is a cool logo. I like it.
Isn't it? You know, and what I want to do is... when I get a cool title, too? You can be anything you want. I just said I'm the host. I said managing editor, but that's not just for This Week in Tech. See, it has all my other jobs. I would have said Chief TWiT, because that's my real title on the show. What are you? You're TWiT number 2? Under TWiT.
Lieutenant TWiT.
Lieutenant TWiT. Hot TWiT. Rather be Sergeant TWiT.
Hot TWiT.
Sergeant TWiT. I like
Master Chief TWiT.
The Master Chief. Gunnery Sergeant TWiT at your service.
We're not recording this, right?
No, we're still...
No, you know,
I think the witty and charming banter we end the show with.
I should have paid attention. I don't know what I'm doing. Too much work. The problem is, there's no limit. My server's completely collapsed. So here's the deal. I'm just trying to get the thing up, but I have a hell of a time. What blue screens? Like, forget it. I'm killing you.
Round the horn.
Doing the TWiT. All right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT. All right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT, all right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT, all right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT, all right. Doing the TWiT, baby.
Let's go round. Round the horn.
All right. PS3 handheld device from Mr. Linux. Napster, Megabyte, SIP phone, McAfee, antivirus, Microsoft MP3, Service Pack 1, Service Pack 2, Service Pack 2, who's granddad, Firewall.
Round the horn.
Doing the TWiT, all right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing the TWiT, all right. Doing the TWiT, baby. Doing TWiT.